throw, swing.
There it is, there it is. Get out, get out. All right.
Hit number 4192.
Swing out and missed. And Todd Browning has pitched a perfect game.
And a high fly ball, center field. He hit it a ton. It's gone. And the 2010 Central Division Championship belongs to the Cincinnati Reds. And Homer Bailey has pitched a no-hitter.
You're listening to the Redlegs Radio Report with Jason and Todd on Bowling Green's home of the Reds, ESPN Radio.
What's up, Redlegs fans? Jason Harbison, Todd Smith with you. The Redlegs Radio Report. Todd, what's up today, buddy?
I'm here.
That's right. The Reds were not last night, very much so, but they had their chances. But
Of course not.
Yeah, we'll get in that later. It's just been kind of a disappointing season, to say the least. We got a lot of show that we can cover that with, though. We can talk till we're blue in the face, or red in the face. I guess it would be, in this instance, it would have to be red in the face. Reds in the face, about how bad the Reds have been doing. It's like put them out of their misery, really, at this point. But with that bad news comes this good news. Our guest today, you heard his voice in the intro there, pretty much the entire intro. Hall of Famer himself, Marty Brennaman, coming on the show a little bit later. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The Hall of Famer himself, the Marty Party, is coming on the Redlegs Radio Report. Super, super lucky to even get him on the air with all of the stuff that's going on. Todd, have you seen all the different things that they're doing for the month of Marty?
I have. I would like to be up there for a lot of this stuff. But
true. I think we're gonna go up and cover a couple games in the coming weeks here, so we'll get to partake in some of those. But just to kind of put this in perspective with what's going on with the month of Marty, tonight Marty will greet fans as they enter the ballpark from 2:30 to 2:55 p.m. at the main Great American Ballpark entrance. And I don't know if you've seen pictures of that. They've been showing some of the earlier nights that he's done that throughout the week. They've got like this little 150 logo there that he stands in front of, and they were showing a little bit of this on the pregame of Reds Live the other day. And it's pretty cool. Fans just come up there, shake the hand, take a picture. You can't get an autograph from him because that would take too long or whatnot. It's just Marty standing there. It's pretty darn cool. People come up there and you always see these, and he's putting his arm around everybody. That's what's so funny. He's hugging little kids, and these older lady come up and they'll just hug him and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I've listened to you," I remember. So it's just a really cool thing to see. So if you get a chance to get up there, there's a couple more nights that he'll be doing that. Also on Friday, September 20th, Marty will be broadcasting an entire game from a temporary booth behind Section 119. I believe that's called Gapper's Alley. So he's going to kind of be out amongst the fans. That's next 2 Fridays from now, September 20th. Pretty darn cool with that. Here's a really cool thing that I know you love, Todd, and especially as us being radio guys can really, really get into this. Thursday, September 26th, the first 20,000 fans will receive a Reds handheld radio with earbuds to listen to Marty's farewell broadcast of the 12:35 p.m. Reds versus Brewers game. And then after the game, they're also going to be doing like an on-field celebration, 46-year career with a Marty party, not to be confused with what we're doing today, with messages from former players, fellow broadcasters, and other celebrities. I'm sure they'll be putting those up on the big board as well. But that's
nice. That would be a good one to be there for.
Well, and what's cool about that is they're also, when they're handing out these little earbuds and this little like 700 WLW kind of, it looks like I don't know if you've seen it online, but it's like a little transistor kind of throwback radio thing that's pretty darn cool.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah, everybody had them back in the day. There were these little kind of, squares. They kind of looked like was a small brick. I know my mom and dad had one, so they were just kind of had a dial on it or something.
Yeah, it was the biggest cell phone. It was a little bit bigger than that, maybe in thickness. But I carried one around in my pocket. You could easily carry it in your pocket, like ride a bike around and kind of listen to Reds games. Yeah, that's what I did.
Did yours have like a big antenna on it, and you had to kind of point it in the right direction, or was it just?
No, it would pick up. Of course, it was an local AM station that they were on back in those days, and so you could pick it up. I think it was downtown Bowling Green, so from in town you could pick it up without any kind of antenna.
That's pretty cool, though. And the nice thing about that is they're also getting rid of the 4 or 5 second delay, however many seconds delay. So if you're sitting in the stands, you can actually hear it happen live because there's, nowadays there's a delay on things. Things go up to a satellite, they come back down. Again, if you're listening to us online, it's a couple seconds behind. Same thing with us. So it's cool that they're kind of doing away with that. So it's not like Marty's going to drop a bad word. Well, I don't know. He might. You never know. There's not going to be any delay at all.
It won't be that bad.
Yeah, but you can sit there and watch the game as it happens and unfolds, kind of like in the good old days of when they would do that when Marty first started back in the 70s. And even I can remember even in the 80s people doing that. You go to Riverfront Stadium, you'd see people, they'd have their little headsets on, kind of the Walkman with those big orange foamy kind of headphones that were popular at the time. So that's just kind of a neat thing there that they're doing for that. So really, not to dwell too much on our guest here, but let's look at some numbers on this. In 150 years of the Reds, of course, the Reds are the oldest Major League Baseball team ever. Marty has been with them for a little over 30% of those 150 years. Think about that, how long he's been with them. 1974, I believe he started. He was hired in the offseason, basically in 73 going into 74, started his first spring training game in 1974 before I was even born. I was born that summer. So Marty has been part of the Reds fabric for a very, very long time.
Marty has literally been the voice of the Reds the entire time I've been alive and listening to the Reds.
Yeah, well, that you can remember, essentially. Because he started in 74 for the Reds. You probably were just a little shaver at the time before Marty was around. Al Michaels, I believe, was the guy that he replaced. So, but Joe definitely, would have been around. That was all you would have remembered as well. So Joe and Marty, such an institution that's going on there. And one last fact about Marty, these are just some stats that I was looking up last night. Of course, we've heard a lot of things that he's been talking about and the many interviews that he's been doing. In 1931, the Reds started broadcasting all Reds games on the radio, which seems kind of late to me, but I guess that's actually 100% of their games in 1931 were finally on the radio. They would just kind of maybe do, I guess, weekend games or something in the 20s. Of course, there was this little thing known as World War II going on as well in the 40s, so I can understand how that maybe wasn't 100%. But anyway, they've now passed more years since they started doing radio in 1931. They've now passed more years with Marty on the radio than years without him. So if you just take that kind of section of when they've had radio broadcasting for the Reds, Marty has been on the air more than he's been off the air since the Reds started going on the air. That to me is crazier than the 30% thing that I talked about earlier.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. There's going to be a lot of people who are going, I'm not sure what to do with this now. Who?
And Marty has said too. He said in our in some of our interviews that we've done with him in the past, and some of the interviews that I've heard, that it's going to be really weird when it comes time for him to go to spring training next year. He's not going to, not that he's not going to know how to act, but it's just going to be so different for him. You do something for 46 years. I don't care if you're, working construction or, you're working at an insurance company. All of a sudden you take that away, you're not going to know what to do.
Yeah.
It's going to be really, it'd be pretty weird for me,
I'm sure he'll find a beach to hang out at.
He and his dog Millie and his wife Amanda, who've been on the show. Amanda, not Millie. I don't know. Millie might be on the show. Who knows? Sometime. That'd be a great guest to get on the show. But they'll be hanging out. They actually went. I don't know if you follow Marty on Instagram, but he and his wife went on this West Coast trip. They actually went to Yellowstone. It was funny because I was in Yellowstone last year, and his pictures looked almost exactly like mine because the places that he went in Yellowstone, it's almost like I had to do a double take because
probably everybody's pictures look.
I was going to say, oh, look, there's Old Faithful. It's the Eiffel Tower, kids. It's the Eiffel Tower, kids. That old line from what's that movie? European Vacation, right? Yeah, I was looking for the rim shot. I couldn't get to it fast enough there. So, but anywho, enough about Marty. We're going to have him on in our second segment, so stay tuned for that. I guess let's talk about the Reds, Todd. Ugh.
Do we have to?
Yeah, I know. On the Redlegs radio report, why would we have to talk about the Reds? They lost last night 7-5 to the D-backs. Came back in the game, of course, with Suarez with his big home run. They were getting close to it, and then they just kind of let it get away from them. So, I don't know what's to be made. What can you take from these next 20 so games that are left in the season? What is there to prove, I guess? Is it just to kind of give guys some playing time to maybe see what they can do going into 2020?
I don't know what they do. it's impossible to say that this team's going in the right direction. They haven't been good lately. They're going to finish. They're maybe going to have 5 or 6 more wins than they had last season. With all of the changes that were made,
right.
That is disappointing.
Well, and I think they have to go something like they have to win 16. I forget the exact number, but it's something like 16-6 to even get back to 500. Which that's not happening. I mean, we can go ahead and say that right now.
No, they're not going 16-6.
Yeah. So I don't know how. Again, I think it's about getting some of those guys playing time, and of course, a lot of it is due to injuries. You still got Winker nursing some injuries. You got Casale with all of that. So. Some of the guys that can step forward. Irvin, of course, with the big walk-off home run this past Thursday versus the Phillies, is another guy that I'd like to see get some time. And we've said time and time again on this show that, hey, it'd be nice to get him some playing time out there because I think given the at bats, this guy could maybe go somewhere. But the whole thing about not having him hit against the left-handers or whatever, the right-handers or whatever they don't do with him. They need to kind of fix that and let the guy play. Let the guy play. Don't keep him on the bench. See what he can do. Give him his time. Right now is the time to do that.
It's hard to get any continuity of the way they run the lineup. I mean, it's nobody gets other than Votto and a couple other guys. Nobody. You don't get regular playing time. You're not in the same position. They get moved around so much here and there. I'm not sure how anyone gets continuity going the way they fill out the lineup card.
It's tough, I think, and I'm going to bring up this word again, the analytics days that we live in, that how do you, to your point, Todd, how do you get any continuity out there with a lineup? If you go, I don't know how many times you, Scott, and I will text back and forth after we see the lineup come out, maybe on Twitter or on Facebook, and we're like, really, this guy's in this spot, or why are we leading off this guy? Van Meter was leading off. I mean, what the heck is going on here with this? You got guys drop down lower in the order than they need to be.
Not only the position you're playing, but where you're hitting an order. Sinzel goes from lead off to the 8th spot. I mean, what?
Yeah.
And what analytics? What does the sheet look like that tells you to do this?
Yeah.
Guys get used to and comfortable hitting in a spot and hit better. Analytics should tell you that. I mean, that's been a fact for years and years and years.
Right. Well, and go ahead. Sorry.
And these guys being young, they need a little stability up there. I don't know. I don't know who's filling out the lineup card.
Well, and look at some of
I
these.
have a hard time believing that Bell is filling out this lineup card.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. We could probably do a whole show on that with some conspiracy theories or whatnot. But, I mean, think about this now. Is the part of the season that we're in, the dog days of summer, as they call it. We're going into September. Everybody's pretty much thinking about football now anyway. That a lot of these guys, even Aquino is a good example of that, have never really been up this part of the season before. Granted, he started August 1st, but as far as his baseball season, of course, he was down in Louisville, started his season in Louisville. You've got guys that haven't even played this long because the minor league season is over, just short of a couple games left for some teams that are in the championship games or whatnot. So they're pretty much done. The September call-ups have happened. So there's a lot of guys that haven't played past September 1st before. And that was one thing that Billy Hamilton got in trouble with because he hadn't really played the long dog days of summer. That September really got to him, and he never really finished out a season. I think maybe one season he actually was on the closing day roster, whatever you want to call it, because a lot of those guys coming up through the minors, their body isn't made for that extra 30 days or however many long that they play because the minors are done September 1st. Their season's done. A lot of these guys, the hot rods, they're all back home here in Bowling Green.
I don't know if it's their body or a mindset. I mean, these guys are young.
Probably a little bit of both.
They can. It's not going to hurt them to play. They should be able to play 200 games. I think it's just mental. I don't know. You mentioned that everybody's thinking about football now. It looks like the team's thinking about football also.
They're worried about their fantasy football team probably. They're probably drafting in the clubhouse there and doing all those wonderful things that go along with that. So, well, we could talk till we're red in the face.
What's going on?
Yeah.
It's a broken record. It's the same thing over and over and over again. When is someone going to decide, you know what, this isn't working?
Maybe this. I would like to vote for Todd Smith to be the GM of the Cincinnati Reds. I don't know. I don't know if my vote counts. How much a radio guy in Bowling Green, how much my vote would count, Todd. But you've got my vote, buddy. You got my vote to be the GM. Now, next time we talk with Nick Kroll, maybe we can put in a good word for you. It's like, hey, maybe if you need to go on vacation or something, let Todd step in.
Give me the checkbook.
Just for 1 week. Just go to the Bahamas. Well, that's a bad example, but you know what I mean. Go somewhere. Take the family. Get away for a week. Let Todd Smith step in. What do you know? All right. We're going to take a break here on the Redlegs Radio Report, but stay tuned because coming up after the break, we have the Hall of Famer himself, Marty Brennaman, right here on ESPN Radio 102.7, ESPN Radio 1027.com.
Okay, I'm on 65 right now. Which exit do I take?
You're going to want to take I-165.
No, I'm on I-65.
No, take I-165. Should be on the sign.
I'm pretty sure that's not a 1 there. I'm pretty sure that's just another I. I-65?
Aye. Well, ahoy, Polloy.
Look, I'm looking at it. I just don't see a 1 there. It's just I-6.
Suffering from post-natural confusion? See Gary Force Paint and Body Shop. iCar Gold Shop, certified with a lifetime warranty. 311 Vanderbilt Drive behind the Scottsville Road Post Office.
This is Nate from Rockcastle Shooting Center. Did you know that one of the premier shooting ranges in the world is right here in South Central Kentucky? Rockcastle Shooting Center has something for everyone's recreational shooting enjoyment. From 3D archery to our brand new sporting clays course, handgun ranges full of steel to targets out to a mile. There's no better place to get some trigger time than Rockcastle Shooting Center. Non-members are welcome, and memberships start at $150 per year. We offer a fantastic range of firearms training and education opportunities from the most basic to the most advanced. Come see us, exit 48 on I-65, Park City, Kentucky. Visit rockcastleshootingcenter.com.
Hey, Sean, what's up with the hole?
It's for my wife.
What?
I mean, my wife wants me to plant some trees.
You know you're breaking the law.
How's that?
You didn't contact 811 before digging because I don't see any flags marking the underground utility lines.
Isn't that costly?
It will be if you cut or hit a utility line. The service is free, Sean, so I suggest you call 811 or go online to 811now.com before you dig yourself into a hole.
We inherited this business from our father.
Who got it from his father.
We needed an emergency preparedness plan in case of fire, cyber attack,
or anything.
So we went to ready.gov and got free checklists, templates, and more to be prepared. Thanks to ready.gov, we worry less about keeping Rizzo and Sons in business.
Only it should be Rizzo and Grandsons.
And granddaughter.
Right.
Go to ready.gov for details on creating an emergency preparedness plan. Becoming a success is hard work. Protecting it isn't. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the Ad Council, and this station.
Of Fame on Thursday, September 26th. He will broadcast his last game versus the Brewers. It's very bittersweet that we welcome back, for hopefully not the last time on the Redlegs Radio Report, Marty Brennaman. Marty, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, Jason. How are you, bud?
I am doing so well, and thank you so much for joining Todd and I today. I know that you're super busy with your month of Marty going on, and we just really appreciate you carving out some time for us down here in Bowling Green.
My pleasure, believe me.
Yes. Well, let's get right to it. The month of Marty is filled with fan meet and greets, like today's game from 2:30 to 2:55. They can meet you. You're broadcasting from the stands. There's all kinds of different promos going on. Are you taking this all in stride? Because I know you said before your announcement this year that you didn't really want a lot of pomp and circumstance when you retired.
No, and I still don't. I'm very honored by it, but I'm very uncomfortable by it all. I would just as soon have been allowed to walk away after the last game that I did. I don't need to be honored in the manner in which the clubs are doing it for me, because I've been blessed to be here for 46 years and living in a great part of the country, and I've been accepted by the fans through 4.5 decades. So that's a payback enough for me as far as I'm concerned. But the running here about running there is about to kill me. I made the comment more than one occasion that if I can survive the summer without dropping dead, I'll enjoy my retirement after that, because it's been really busy the last couple of weeks.
Marty, this is Todd.
Hey, Todd.
How are you doing this morning?
Good.
Thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. Just forgetting about your retirement for a bit, what do you make of the 2019 Reds? Do you think they've been a disappointment, or are there any things that have surprised you about the team?
Well, I think to me they've been a disappointment because I thought they were a 500 team. I didn't think they were any better than that. I think anybody that had expectations that were better than that, for me, would have been unrealistic from day one. But the fact that they are going to have to, I think, go 15-6 or something like that to get to 500, which is not likely. To me, they've been a disappointment. They're going to win more games than they won last year. And I'm sure that the powers that be are going to hang their caps on that and say we're showing improvement. But at the same time, if you were expecting something that you're not getting, then that's a disappointment for me. I think this club needs to address certain areas in order to be the kind of club that they think they can be in 2020. And I feel confident that they'll do that. I think they know where the areas of needed improvement are. Now the challenge will be for them to go out and make those improvements and come back and be a relevant player in the National League Central next year.
Marty, do you think there's anybody that's surprised you on this team? Of course, Aquino would be the easy answer for that, but are there some guys that have maybe disappointed you in some aspects but also surprised you in others?
Well, surprising, there's some guys on this club that were not even on the radar when the club broke camp and came to Cincinnati to open the season. You mentioned Aquino. There was a kid who had been knocking around the system forever, and they finally took him off the major league roster, the 40-man roster. And that was an indication that they really did not feel that he was ever going to be the player they felt he would. And fortunately for them, nobody claimed him. Anybody could have had him after they exposed him to other clubs by taking him off the big league roster, and the Reds re-signed him, and he made some changes in his stance and in his swing. And I think by the time the season's over, he'll be here. He will have been here for the final 2 months. And that's a pretty good barometer for determining whether or not a player can help you the following year. And if he continues to swing the bat reasonably well, then I don't see any reason why he would not be penciled in when the season's over as their right fielder come opening day next year. Josh Van Meter. The only time we ever saw him was as an extra player late in spring training after they'd had so many cuts if they needed to add minor league players just to fill out a spring training roster for a particular game or games. So these are indications that they have kids that possibly will be able to help them down the road that they were not counting on. A disappointment for me, Tyler Malley's been a major disappointment. Mm-hmm. I don't see any improvement in him at all. There's no question he's got major league stuff, but at some point he's got to go out and pitch reasonably well. He was a disappointment last night. I mean, he pitched 4 innings of 2-hit baseball, and then the wheels fell off in the 5th inning, and he was unable to get out of the inning, and we've seen that all year long. I don't think you can say that he is going to be a member of this rotation come 2020. He's going to have to prove himself all over again in spring training, and I think that their patience will be a little bit less so next spring when he tries to win a spot on this pitching staff than they have been all season long. The Iglesias kid is shortstop. I've said it, if I've had a nickel for every time I've said it on the radio, that this club needs to sit down and talk seriously about a contract extension. And I don't hear any feedback from the baseball people that has been the case. Maybe it has been, and they kept it ultra quiet, but he's been sensational. He's one of the 5 best defensive shortstops I've ever seen. And on top of that, he's hit around almost 300. He's had big hits. He's been a great teammate. So I just think they need to make an effort. Now, if the money's too much, that's understandable. But at least the club can say to its fans, hey, we tried to sign him, and we simply couldn't afford him. But just to let him arbitrarily walk away, I don't think is good public relations at all. Suarez is having a big, big year. And last year, I felt like he just dialed it out in the last month of the season. He was not a good player in September of 2018. He has been a different player this month. He's 5 home runs away from tying the all-time record by a Venezuelan home run player for one season. He's got 42 now. He's 5 away with 47. So they've had some people that have really performed well for this team. Having said that, they cannot go into 2020 with essentially the same team that they've got right now, because if they do, they're going to suffer through the same kind of year that they've suffered through this year.
Marty, it's almost like you're reading Todd's journal with all of those answers that you have, because Todd has said pretty much those same things, sentiments about those players on air. It's just crazy.
Well, that's a good thing. Todd's paying attention.
Absolutely. So kind of switching back to your retirement, and I know you're probably tired of talking about this, but you said once you retire, and I'm paraphrasing, you won't really miss baseball that much. It's more the people. Could you kind of care to expand on that a little bit?
Well, somebody said to me, and I've never been one for numbers. I don't care about that. I know guys that can tell you today how many baseball games they broadcast. I think that's a bunch of crap. I've never paid any attention to that at all. I don't care about that. But somebody said to me a couple of months ago that I'd broadcast somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,500 and 7,000 Major League Baseball games. I've seen enough. I mean, I think people who are smart are the people who can turn the page. And that's not an indication in any way that I minimize the love that I've had for this job and love that I have for the game of baseball. But I think when you walk away, then walk away and then enjoy your retirement and do the things that you've never been able to do. And so I'm sure I'll see more baseball because I've struck a deal with the club to make appearances for them when they feel like my presence will help them in some manner. And I'm sure there will be times when they want me to be at the ballpark, and I'll be there. But my whole life is not going to be guided by baseball anymore. But I will miss the people terribly. That's the people that I work with, the people that are at the ballpark that I see on a daily basis, guys that I've formed friendships with other ball clubs over the years. That's going to be the hardest thing for me. And I think that's true in most cases. I've done a rather unscientific poll over the last 3 years, and I've talked to retired lawyers and doctors and the factory workers and all manner of vocations that people have retired, and almost to a person, they don't miss a job, they miss the people. And that's going to be the hardest thing I'm going to have to overcome when this team packs up and goes to spring training and gets ready for another baseball season. But as far as the game itself is concerned, I don't really believe I'm going to miss it that much.
Marty, it's Todd again. Going back over all your years on the mic for the Reds, if Marty Brennaman is the general manager of a team, and you have to pick from the players that have been there in Cincinnati, all the great players, could you give me one position player and one starting pitcher that you would start your team with?
Well, the one position player I'd start my team with is Pete Rose. I mean, he played in more winning games than any player in the history of baseball. So I'd be a fool to pick somebody else. Not only what his contribution was on the field, but also what his contribution is in the clubhouse. He's number one for me, and I say that probably with extreme prejudice because he and Joe Morgan are the two of the best friends I've had in the game over all these years. And Joe would be another player. For 2 years, Joe Morgan was the best player I've ever seen in the game, with all due respect to Barry Bonds and Ken Griffey Jr. and all the rest of the so-called great players that have come down the line. When he won the MVP awards in 75 and 76, he's the best player I've ever seen. He could beat you every way there was to beat you. But if I had to start a team, I'd start it with Pete. And as far as a pitcher is concerned, that's a tough question. I've seen some awfully good ones. I'd certainly be inclined to lean toward Tom Seaver, who was here for almost 3 years and was really on top of his game when he was a pitcher for the Reds. But I think of people like Mario Soto, who pitched on some brutally bad ball clubs and was just a sensational pitcher. But there are so many guys that would stand out as a pitcher that you'd start a staff with. But I would have to lean on Seaver and probably Soto as the two guys that probably I would look at harder than anybody else.
We're speaking with Marty Brennaman today, of course, if you don't recognize his voice already, on the Redlegs Radio Report. Marty, to kind of tag on to Todd's question, are there any kind of, and I hate to use this term, secondary players or maybe some non-household names of guys over your 46 years that were players that you really liked or maybe gravitated towards?
Oh, yeah. If I ever write a book, I'll have a chapter on my all-time favorite players, and there'll be guys that a lot of guys in that list are going to be guys that were not great players, but were just great people. I immediately think of people like Doug Flynn, and I think of a guy like Tommy Hume, who had some good years in the big leagues as a closer for the Reds and is one of my dear friends today. I stay in touch with him. He lives down in Florida, Palmetto, Florida, close to Bradenton, and he and his wife Susan are friends of ours. And I just have great respect for guys like that. Sean Casey is another one. One of the most popular players ever to put on a Reds uniform. And on his current ball club, Tucker Barnhart would qualify in that same respect. So I don't judge players by their greatness and their ability to play the game better than anybody else. I judge them by what kind of people they are and the relationships that I've been able to develop with them long after their playing days have come to an end.
It's funny you mentioned Tom Hume because Todd, you've got like this really weird relationship with. We had Tom on a couple weeks ago. We have him on a couple times this season, Marty. He just loves Todd's country accent and makes fun of him any chance that he gets, and it's just it's just hilarious.
Tommy's a good guy. We've been friends forever. I mean, we used to play golf a lot when he was a player and as a coach, and he's one of the finest people I know, and I'm privileged to say he's a friend of mine.
Absolutely. Now, Marty, you mentioned some of your great memories. Do you have any? I don't want to really take you down this road too much, but are there any regrets or anything that you would have changed over your 46 seasons with the Reds?
I don't think so. I've been asked that question before. I look back on it, and I don't think there's anything I would change about the years I've spent here in this town. I don't have any regrets. I've turned down a lot of jobs in bigger markets that I don't look back upon today and say, well, maybe I made a mistake. I should have taken that job. And that's all born out of loving where you live and the acceptance that you get from the people that turn on the radio every night to listen to your broadcast. I can't think of a single thing that I would have changed the way the road that my career has traveled since reporting for work on February 1st, 1974. And I'm happy to say that because I know a lot of guys that, have some regrets in varying degrees of importance, but I can't honestly say there's been one thing that's happened with this club that I was involved in that if I could go back and change, I would.
Marty, it's Todd again. Over the years, you've mentioned the beginnings of, and this one belongs to the Reds, but to my knowledge, you never talked much about the Titanic struggle line.
The reason I don't talk about that, Todd, somebody asked me that yesterday. I don't remember when I started saying that. And that's the reason why I don't talk about it much. I don't remember it. There are a lot of things that come out of my mouth that I don't remember when they started. In fact, I'll tell you what I found out yesterday, and I don't know why I didn't know this, but I didn't. People have talked so much, and understandably so, about the first game I did in the first inning, opening day of 74, when Henry Aaron hit the home run that tied Babe Ruth's record. And I've often said that the first two batters in that opening game at Riverfront Stadium got on base against Jack Billingham, and then Henry Aaron came up and hit the 3-run home run for 7-14. I found out yesterday, I saw a fellow brought a scorecard from that game and showed it to me, and I looked at it, and that was actually one out. The first two batters reached, and then Darrell Evans, who was the Braves third baseman, flied out to left field, and that brought Aaron up, who was batting in the cleanup spot, and he hit the 3-run home run. I didn't think there was an out. So, 46 years after the fact, I realized that there had been a batter retired before Aaron hit the home run. But going back to the Titanic struggle thing, I don't know when that started. I don't know when Ain't Love Grand started. I have no idea. That's just it's just the things that come out of the mind of a left-hander, because we are all a little bit different from most other people.
Marty, a couple more questions here, and we'll let you go. Again, we thank you for spending some time with us today down here in Bowling Green. You've had some celebrities on over the years. Rob Lowe was on air with you a couple months back. Has there been anybody that you could maybe pinpoint as some of your favorite celebs to kind of share the booth with you or kind of stop in from time to time?
Well, Jonathan Winters was one of the all-time great ones. He was a great comedian, born and raised in Springfield, Ohio. His dad was a bank president there, and he maintained his Cincinnati Reds loyalties, living in Los Angeles and being in show business and being incredibly successful. His spontaneity as a comedian was unparalleled. And he showed up one night at Riverfront, unannounced to.
So full disclosure there, we interviewed Marty at 8:30 before we went on live at 9, and the very last question just cut off there. So we can kind of talk about that. So you didn't really miss much there, but that was such a great interview with Marty.
Way to go, computer!
No, it was all right. But we asked him about. I asked him, Rob Lowe was in the booth a few months back. Have there been any other celebrities? And he said Jonathan Winters, and he went on to talk about how Jonathan Winters played this character that was a retired baseball player and had he and Joe in stitches, and it was pretty hilarious. And then he closed out the interview by asking, he said, "Okay, before you go, Jason, who does Western play today?" I said, "Oh, they play FIU. They don't play till like 6 o'clock tonight our time." So he's always, every time we talk to Marty, when we see him kind of behind the scenes, always wanting to know what's going on down here in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Always wanting every year we do the Reds Fest up at Duke Energy Center, which is kind of like the Comic-Con, if you will, for Reds fans. And we have Marty on. What's the first thing he always asks us? He's like, "Hey, who's Western playing today?"
Yeah, what's going on with the Western down there?
Yeah, what's going on? Who's your strong power forward that you got down there on the team? And usually he's like, "You got this one kid that." And Jim Kelch was always this way too. He's like, "You got that one kid that's a running back down there," and half the time, Todd and I don't know because we're not really as in tune with like our buddies here at the station with what's going on with Western football and Western volleyball and all of those things. But man, I mean, that just goes to show you how well-rounded he is. He's just so much more than baseball. But you did ask him one quick question before it cut off there too, Todd. It was something about Joe Nuxall, wasn't it? What'd you say? What would he think?
Yeah, what would he think about the month of Marty?
Yeah. Well, and Marty went on to say that he's like, oh, first of all, he'd get a really good laugh about it, and then he'd also know that I would be really embarrassed because I'm not about the pomp and circumstance. And Marty, we asked him years ago on the show as well, what's going to happen when you finally do that? And he's always said, well, I'm just going to write off, it's going to be the last game of the season. I'm just going to write off in the sunset. And that's the way Marty was. But then when they made the announcement with the 150-year celebration, they wanted to kind of tie Marty along with that. So this year, I think it's just kind of been uncomfortable for him. And as he said in our interview there, that if I make it out of this alive, I'll be I'll be lucky. But that's the Marty that we know and love. So anyway, we're going to take a break here on the Redlegs Radio Report. So much more Reds to talk about. If you'd like, give us a call, 270-782-1945. That number is 270-782-1945 right here on the Redlegs Radio Report, ESPN Radio 102.7, ESPN Radio 1027.com.
When I have an asthma attack, I feel scared. It's kind of like an elephant is on my chest. I feel like I'm choking. Sometimes my parents have to take me to the hospital.
You know how to react to their asthma attacks. Here's how to prevent them. Call 1-866-NO-ATTACKS. Visit www.noattacks.org or call your doctor, because even one attack is one too many.
I feel like a fish with no water.
Brought to you by the EPA and the Ad Council.
Remember when your mother used to say, "Don't let the bed bugs bite," when she tucked you in? Well, guess what? Bed bugs are real. They do feed at night, and they're on the rise throughout the United States. But with the right knowledge, you can minimize the serious health and property threats posed by common pests like bed bugs, termites, and rodents. To learn how, visit pestworld.org. This message brought to you by the National Pest Management Association.
Earl, where in the Sam Hill have you been? I called you an hour ago.
Luann, I had to load the boat and stop for some soda pops.
Well, I'm sure glad you're including me in your priorities. They are still not working. Now the chair is stuck to my hind end, Earl. That is not funny. If I don't get this chair loose, it's liable to ruin my new, fun, summer shorty shorts.
All right. Get in the bed of the truck.
What?
I'll take you to...
No.
You can't fit in the cab with that chair stuck to your backside, Luann.
This is ridiculous.
The doctor will see you now.
What seems to be the problem?
Well, obviously this chair is stuck to my fanny.
Actually, I've seen this before. It's called sticky chair. First thing, you must turn to the experts at Bowling Green Refrigeration, Heating and Cooling for your carrier unit.
Ours is one of them others.
Don't worry, they service Carrier and all other brands. Now, Earl, if you lend me a hand, let's get this chair.
Hold still, Luann. 1, 2...
Ouch!
Sweat, combined with furniture, can cause sticky chair. Take preventative measures now with Bowling Green Refrigeration, Heating and Cooling, servicing Carrier and all others. 270-782-5391.
This is a Morgan & Morgan consumer message.
A car crash takes seconds to occur. Then what should take a great deal of time and research may only take a day. Sometimes the firm you hire does many things: bankruptcy, immigration, criminal defense. But would you hire a pediatrician to do your heart surgery? Of course not. Our firm is an open book, and our personal injury attorneys only handle one kind of case. Even if you hired the wrong firm, you can still fire them before it's too late. Injured? Dial pound law on your cell. There's only one Morgan & Morgan. Offices, Bowling Green.
In stores now, Pabst Grippo's Beef Jerky. We have taken the great Pabst Beef Jerky and married it with the iconic Grippo's Barbecue Seasoning. This is a marriage made in beef jerky heaven. The thin cut of Pabst Beef Jerky is dusted to perfection with Grippo's seasoning. Once you try it, you will know no other beef jerky compares. So the next time you're headed on a road trip to the lake or your favorite golf course, be sure to have Pabst Beef Jerky fueling your outdoor lifestyle. PabstJerky.com. Ask for us at your local store.
Welcome back to the Redlegs Radio Report. Jason Harbison with Todd Smith, hanging out with you here on this wonderful Saturday morning. Yeah.
Good song.
Yeah. Is that Word Up? Is that the name of that song? Like Word Up or something?
Yeah.
Word Up.
I can't remember the name of the band.
It's probably some band like Chilliwack or something.
I know Korn did it. They
did like their own version in 2000s. But anyway, if you missed any of our Marty Brennaman interview, you can go back and listen to it online later this week. It comes out on Monday on ESPN Radio 1027.com. And also, Todd, I'm going to do this probably the earliest we've ever done this in the show. Don't forget, 310 Central. Alex Young, 384 ERA for the Diamondbacks versus Castillo, 325. With 20 minutes left in the show, Todd, I think we've set a new record by actually talking about today's pitchers instead of almost forgetting until the very end of the show.
Instead of the last 10 seconds.
And why not?
By the way,
only
the Reds are playing.
Yeah, on this very station. How can this happen? Yes, we always forget to talk about the starting pitchers and the game coming up. And why not turn over a new leaf now near the end of the season, especially for the Redlegs Radio Report. So...
definitely.
Yeah, but that should be a really good game. Both of their ERAs are similar. I think Castillo is one of those guys that he's had a couple outings that he's kind of gotten knocked around a little bit. He's kind of starting to come back down to earth because he was so great when he started the season. But again, I think he's one of those pitchers that's a consistent pitcher. You can count on him. He's going to be one of those guys, top of the rotation type person. I think the argument could be made if he's the ace or if Sonny Gray is, because Sonny Gray's really turned things around.
There's no question that Sonny Gray's the ace at the moment.
Yes. I'm talking about the whole season.
They're both really good.
Yeah. And we were talking, too, that Sonny Gray, we're like, oh, my gosh, this guy, he's coming off some injuries, and the Yankees kind of got rid of him. And we're like, well, if you're going to there was some question, too. It's like, well, why would you sign this guy? And he's done nothing but go out there and shine for the Reds. I mean, he's been amazing. He should have gotten the win this week if you look at the numbers that he's putting up there. And what's nuts is his win-loss, essentially, ratio, because he should have a lot more wins. It just so happens the games that he pitches, he's not getting any offensive production. I don't know if that's just something in the stars or what's going on, something in the water, in the clubhouse, or wherever they're playing. I don't know, but that guy's got to be so mad going home almost every night that he's in their starting rotation.
Yeah, well, I mean, they don't put a lot of stock in wins and losses anymore.
Right.
Johnny Cueto was like that. He never got any run support.
Mm-hmm.
What would his numbers look like?
Yeah.
But, the offense is not good, so...
I think that's one thing that we kept, and I heard Jim Day say this last night, and not to harp on this anymore, but he said everybody was saying in the offseason, pitching, we got to go out and get some pitching. We've got the offense here. We've got the offense. It's going to do so great. That's not my impersonation of Jim Day, by the way. Don't call. That's just me doing a weird voice.
Good, because it didn't sound
like it doesn't sound anything like Jim Day. I can do some other people's voices, but I can't do Jim Day's voice. So Josie got it down. I can do Josie any day of the week. So
Yep, you can.
Yeah, I won't do it now because I kind of got this little gravelly thing going on in my throat. But anyway, so stay tuned for that 310 Central Castillo against Alex Young this afternoon. Speaking of pitchers, Todd, on Wednesday, Lorenzen joined Babe Ruth as the only major league player since 1900 to earn the win, hit a home run, and play in the outfield in the same game. And not only that, he went on to start in center field on Thursday. I know your sentiments about Lorenzen.
Well, I love Lorenzen. It is so weird to see that on paper.
Isn't it, though?
Babe Ruth and what was it, 1921?
Yeah.
And Michael Lorenzen. It's like, what is this?
Well, it just kind of goes to show you how the game has changed so much and how weird it's just kind of taken this turn, if you will, from back in the day, because that was just the thing. There wasn't even a 5-rotation guy, a 5-rotation team for starting pitchers. You'd maybe go 3 days and pitch again. You'd pitch the entire game. There was really never anything known as a relief pitcher. There might have been 1 or 2 guys, but when you're pitching, and you go out there and you give up 100 runs, you're giving up 100 runs.
Back in those days, the only time a relief pitcher come in is if the starting pitcher's arm fell off. Literally.
And the ball usually got hit in the stands and got thrown back in from the spectators, and it was the same ball that they were using, and that's what just makes Babe Ruth's numbers and Lou Gehrig and guys like that just so much more astronomical if you think about the dead ball era, as they call it. Yeah. So, which is funny. This is kind of switching gears, but on similar gears, if you will, that somebody was tweeting out there were a couple guys, and I understand this whole narrative. There were a couple guys at Great American Ballpark this week when they were playing the Phillies this week, sitting there in the Diamond Club seats right behind home plate, of course, and they're wearing suit and ties, and they look like they just came from a business meeting. Maybe they were Procter & Gamble or Kroger or some big corporation that's there in Cincinnati. And so many people on Twitter were like, oh my gosh, these guys, these corporate people, the fans can't have those seats, and they're just there having a meeting. They don't even know who the starting pitcher, that kind of thing. I get that. I understand that. That's the way every major sport is now. But going back to what we were talking about, how many times have you seen old pictures or even watched like 8 Men Out? I think that's on Hulu or something. You could watch one of those old movies, even though it was made in the 80s. The Natural, again, another movie made in the 80s, but it's about baseball. Guys went to baseball games wearing suit and ties and like those straw pillbox hats.
Everyone.
Everyone.
And on your point, I mean, how do we know that those guys don't love baseball and came from a meeting and paid for those seats with their own ticket or their own money?
Right.
And,
yeah.
We have no idea, right?
Most people are assuming, it's just the big boss over at whatever corporation, and he's trying to schmooze somebody. So there they are sitting right there. Might not be at all.
There's guys in suits have gone to baseball games before because they love to go to baseball games and they didn't have time to change clothes.
Even up until up through the 70s, guys were wearing suit and tie because the whole licensing thing. I can remember even as a kid, and you can probably remember this too. You wouldn't see a lot of people wearing like not today. If you went up to Great American Ballpark, I would say 90% of the people there have on a Reds jersey of a player, maybe even a former player, at least a Reds shirt, a Reds hat. I'd say 80-90% of the people are wearing a Reds hat of some sort, and they're all just dressed to the nines with different Reds gear. Back in the day, there wasn't the licensing. People didn't really have, the most you'd ever have in the 70s was maybe a baseball hat or one of those plastic helmets. Yeah, the helmets.
A lot of the kids had those.
Yeah.
But, they didn't sell. You had the little miniature bats, and I think maybe they sold batting gloves when I was a kid, with the Reds logo on them. But there wasn't, I don't remember jerseys very much at all.
I remember my mom and dad said when I was just a baby that they had, like, some lady that went to church with them made this Joe Morgan jersey for me. I don't know if I'm sure there's pictures of it somewhere, but it was basically like a handmade. It was done really nicely. The craftsmanship of it was great, but it wasn't licensed. Now you can go on Fanatics and buy a onesie that's got the logo on it. You can probably get your favorite player's name on the back of this onesie, and it's probably $50.
Yeah.
So, and that's probably cheap too. But anyway, it's for people to even say that, it's just kind of funny to me because we're not that far removed from that. Of course, we're also not that far removed from guys smoking stogies and Great American Ballpark.
See any of those pictures of Crosley Field, they're full of people with suits.
Yeah. I even tweeted out, I said for the people that were doing that, I tweeted out a picture of a bunch of people waiting in line to get into Crosley Field. They're all wearing pillbox hats, and they're all wearing suit and ties. I think that's just hilarious. Yeah. I just love pictures like that.
Now, can you imagine Cincinnati in August in a suit and tie?
And they're probably wool suits as well. Yeah, but again, back then, that was considered casual. People didn't really wear jeans. I can remember specifically a couple years ago, my wife's grandmother passed away. You know how they have those little slideshows? They're kind of there's usually like a monitor at most viewings now, and they'll just have like pictures that kind of come in and out, kind of fade in and out of throughout her life. And her grandmother's father who was considered like a farmer, and what we would consider probably poor now, even though that they weren't back then. He was wearing a suit and tie, and that was just like he was going into town.
Yeah,
that was his thing, and back then people were like, well, that's just what you dress up as. That's oh, you're just going into Walmart or whatnot. You'd put a suit and tie on. So, I don't want to sound so fuddy-duddy about this kind of thing, but really for people to get all worked up over people and how they dress at a game just because they're not wearing a Jay Bruce jersey and he hadn't even been here for 5 years. I mean, So, yes, I'm going to go waste $200 on a jersey for a guy that I'm not sure is even going to be here. How many people went out and bought a Derek Dietrich jersey when he was tearing it up at the beginning of the season? And now they're wondering, why did I even do that? I don't even know. I mean, the Puig jerseys, as they call them, those shirt jerseys, those things I'm sure probably sold out when they first announced that. So what are you going to do with that jersey? You're not going to frame?
I don't know. If you bought a Puig jersey, you couldn't have been. You can't be very forward thinking because you knew he was going to be here to the All-Star break.
Yeah, pretty much. So that's another thing that we could take into equation with that. And then an Aquino jersey. Who knows? I'd probably buy an Aquino jersey. I know that I'm kind of on the bandwagon with that. Maybe a Scherzi, the shirt jersey. I'd buy one of those. But here's an interesting stat on Aquino. Switching gears again. 38 RBIs in just over 30 games. Is that guy for real? I mean, he has more RBIs than he has games. He started August 1st. He got the call up. Just been tearing it up. Won the Rookie of the Month for August and is putting up the biggest numbers that we have seen this side of, Barry Bonds in a month. Amazing. Is he ever going to come back down to earth, Todd?
I don't know. They've been playing good teams. It's not like he's facing, the bad pitching or anything. I mean, he's been hitting against good pitching staff, so there's definitely something. He can hit the baseball.
Yeah. Well, and one thing they were concerned about, too, when he was in Louisville was he couldn't hit the breaking ball. And it's like, well, that was the one thing keeping him away from coming up into the big leagues. And I think that he's pretty much shown that he can hit the ball, drive it to the opposite field, for power. He had a couple hits the other night. Last night he had one down the line that, one of your favorite topics, swung outside of the strike zone. Wasn't right down the middle. It was on. Wow. It was down and away.
Wait,
swung at
you
it.
Can't swing outside the strike zone.
Yeah, I know. I know it's hard to believe.
You make a good decision if if 40% of the time you're not going to hit it anywhere if you swing out of the strike zone. Well, what about that one hit that wins the game? Has nothing to do with percentages,
right?
Or drive in a run.
The one hit that wins the game in a one-run game. That the Reds keep losing. They could tie it, or it could tie it up.
Right, and is the very reason why the Reds are not in competition for a playoff spot. One-run losses.
Yeah,
little things. Swing outside the strike zone, drive a run in.
I thought it was interesting what Marty said too about Iglesias, and he said, if I had a nickel for every time I said this on the air, you got to sign that guy long term, and it's going to be a PR nightmare. Paraphrasing.
We're talking about Jose.
Yeah. No, not Rasail. Iglesias, but Jose Iglesias, the shortstop. And he said they got to sign this guy long term because he said he's one of the top 5 defensive shortstops that I have seen in all of my years, and that's a statement coming from a guy that's getting ready to retire after 46 years. So,
one thing I find disturbing about the Reds right now.
Probably a lot of things, but
well, if you think about it, the top 2 guys on the team did not spend any time in the organization before the major league level.
You're talking about Suarez and him,
right?
Yeah,
that's a little disturbing. That the guys that you brought up through your system don't get it done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could say maybe Aquino. Of course, we've just seen a sample size of him as well. But how many times have we said on the show, and I'll say it again, that we've got all these scrap heap guys that the Reds pick. I mean, Freddie Galvis is a good example of that. The guy is great, although his numbers have fallen off a little bit because when he came over from Toronto, was lighting the world on fire. Again, scrap heap guy. Keep getting these scrap heap guys. They got all these guys that they're just picking up off of the waiver wires. Somebody doesn't want him. Detroit doesn't want him for what you're talking about. Those 2 guys. Here we are.
Yeah.
So that may say something about the farm system.
I think it does say something about the farm system. In my opinion, people might not like it, but there is a culture with the Cincinnati Reds that I believe has rubbed off Joey Votto and the way he approaches hitting. that, you're standing up there looking for a strike, and if you don't get it, you're not going to swing. You don't care what the situation is. And that's not how you win one-run baseball games.
And that's what you think long run?
That needs to end.
Yeah.
Also you've got a guy with pretty poor numbers hitting in the 2 spot every night.
Mm-hmm.
He gets on base and scores runs, but he doesn't swing the bat. He doesn't drive in run. He doesn't hit home runs. At the top of the order, you need your best hitters.
Mm-hmm.
And Joey Votto's no longer one of them.
Yeah. I would agree with that to some extent on there. Now, do you think that going back to what we were talking about, the minor leagues, do you think that that's like a system type thing where maybe his mindset about the way he carries, not necessarily the way he carries himself, but the way that the mindset is that you talk about with Votto, does that kind of trickle down, maybe even down to the minor leagues? Is it that kind of mindset that the Reds need to get out of?
Well, Votto came up through the minor leagues, so
true.
Where does it come from? I don't know, but I know it needs to stop if the Reds are going to finish anywhere,
above 500.
If they're going to stop losing 90 games a year, need some offense. Need to stop standing up there watching pitches go by.
Yeah. Well, and I think you could also talk too about how we've said this before. You said at the beginning of the season, Todd, and I'll repeat it, that the bullpen arms are going to be so taxed the way that it's been going. And I mean, even Lorenzen, as great as he's been, I mean, he gave up a run last night. Iglesias, the other Iglesias, you can't count on him much anymore.
No.
I mean, you've got to give him...
His arms shouldn't be taxed.
Yeah, they shouldn't be this part of the season, and we knew kind of coming to this part that they would be, but they kind of hit the taxing, if you will, a little early. A little too early for my liking, if you will.
Thanks to analytics. A pitcher can't go... starting pitcher can't go more than 5.
Mm-hmm.
How many times has the starter been pulled out when he was doing fine?
Yeah.
Bring somebody in, and there we go.
Yeah. I'm sure Sonny Gray could probably talk to it. Maybe we'll get Sonny Gray on here, and he can get. Well,
Sonny
he would.
Gray, there's been a lot of Gray and Castillo, especially a lot of games that they should have stayed in 7 innings.
Yeah, I think that Sonny Gray has got a case for maybe grabbing some guys by the collar, like Pecoro said on our show a couple weeks back. It's like, let's. He's not going to do that, but it's like, give me some run support. I would be mad. I mean, if I was Sonny Gray, I mean, this guy's coming off of an All-Star appearance. Granted, he was one of the reserves, but how could you not go into the clubhouse and just be like, give me some run support? There's other games that they'll go out and they'll just put up 12 runs, and then Sonny Gray comes out and it's like, here's 1-0 runs, whatever.
Yeah.
So just another day in the Reds clubhouse.
As Jeff Pecoro said a couple of weeks ago, there's no leadership on this team.
Mm-hmm.
And that needs to be addressed as well. You need some good offensive players,
mm-hmm.
and you need some leadership. Don't know where it comes from, but they need to do something in the offseason, or 2020 is going to be the same as 2019.
I'd just like to put this out there. If you and Jeff Pecoro had a podcast, Todd, I would listen to it. It'd be great. It'd be really great. It would be a great. I can't say great enough.
I don't know how much of a hit it would be. People would be going, well, these guys just do nothing to complain about.
Yeah, you'd be like the two. I've said this before too. Those 2 old guys that are Waldorf and what's his name, Statler. The 2 old guys, the 2 old Muppets that are up in the balcony. He's like, Joey Votto. You just be like up there, kind of heckling people. That'd be a great show. But again, I'd tune into that. I'd even pay money for that. I don't know. Maybe next time we're up there,
we'll work on it.
Yeah, next time we're up there, we got to talk to Pecoro and say, hey, you and Todd need to do a podcast together, because I think that there's a voice out there that people would listen to. All right, we're going to shut the show down. Thanks, everybody, for listening today to the Redlegs Radio Report. Don't forget to check out the podcast on ESPNRadio1027.com. If you missed any of our Marty Brennaman report, we'll see everybody back here next week on ESPN Radio 102.7.
This copyrighted broadcast is presented by authority of the Cincinnati Reds and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form.